HOA Karen used her Bentley to trap my barn door. But my tractor had other plans. She thought she could control me. She thought her shiny car was stronger than my will. Every morning, her Bentley stood like a wall in front of my barn, blocking my work, mocking my life. And every time I asked, she only smiled, like she owned me, like she owned everything. But one day, I started my tractor, and when those doors opened, Karen realized too late what was coming. Welcome back to HOA Secrets Uncovered, where the darkest, pettiest, and most unbelievable HOA stories come to light. My name is Daniel. I live in a small, quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. I keep to myself mostly. I work my land. I fix things. I mind my own business. At least I did, until the HOA decided I was their next target. And at the center of it all was Karen, the president, the queen bee, the one who thought she could control my life. But this time, she went too far, and this is how it all began. The story began on a morning that felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't bring peace, but unease. I stepped out of my house. The sun was just coming up, painting the roofs in orange and gold. For a moment I thought it would be a normal day, just me, my barn, and the work waiting inside. But then I saw it, the Bentley, parked right in front of my barn door, like a blockade. The polished black paint reflected the sunrise, like it was mocking me, and the chrome shined so bright it felt like the car was laughing in my face. At first, I stood still, blinking, hoping maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just someone lost, maybe a guest visiting a neighbor. But deep down, I already knew there was only one person in this neighborhood bold enough, arrogant enough, to do this. Karen, the HOA president, the self-appointed queen of O, or cul-de-sac, the woman who thought every blade of grass, every drop of paint, every inch of wood belonged to her approval. She hated my barn. She hated the tractor inside. She said it ruined the aesthetic harmony of our neighborhood. She said it made us look like farmers, not civilized homeowners. But this was something new. She had trapped me. She had used her car, her precious Bentley. As a weapon, I walked closer, my boots crunching on the gravel, my heart beating faster with every step. The closer I got, the clearer it became. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't careless parking. She had lined the car up perfectly, nose to the barn door, blocking every inch of space. I clenched my fists, heat rising in my chest. And then I heard her voice. "Morning," she said, her tone sweet but sharp, the kind of sweetness that cuts. She stood on the edge of her lawn, holding a coffee cup, sunglasses hiding her eyes, but I didn't need to see them. I knew she was smiling. "Having trouble with your barn?" she added, tilting her head, like she was innocent. Trouble. That word echoed in my head. Trouble was what she lived for. She had fined me before, for grass half an inch too tall. She had warned me about leaving my trash can out 5 minutes late. She had even measured my mailbox with a ruler one time. But this was different. This wasn't just a fine. This wasn't just a warning. This was her declaring war. I forced myself to stay calm. I asked her why her car was there, blocking my barn. She sipped her coffee slowly, like every second was hers to waste. "Oh, that?" she said, shrugging. "Barn doors aren't part of the approved design. Maybe it's better if they stay shut." And then she turned her back on me, walked away, heels clicking on the pavement, leaving me standing there, staring at the Bentley, staring at the prison she had built for me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slam my fists against that shiny hood, but I didn't, because something inside me whispered, this wasn't just about today. This was about power, and Karen wasn't going to stop. The next morning, The Bentley was there again, same spot, same shine, same blockade. I couldn't get to my tractor, I couldn't get to my work. Every time I looked at that car, I could almost see her smile reflected in the paint. And the strangest thing, neighbors began to notice. They whispered when they walked by, some shaking their heads, some laughing quietly. But no one dared to step in. No one dared to face Karen. By the third day, it wasn't just about my barn anymore. It was about my pride. It was about showing her I wouldn't bend. I wouldn't break. But what could I do? She had the rules, the HOA board, and that expensive Bentley like a shield. That night I sat on my porch, staring at the barn in the moonlight. The Bentley sat there too, silent, like a predator waiting in the dark. And as I watched it, an idea sparked in my mind. A dangerous idea. An idea Karen would never expect, because what she didn't know, what she didn't understand, was that I had something far older, far stronger, far heavier than her car. I had my tractor, the machine that had worked my land for years, the machine that was built to break ground, move earth, push through anything. A machine that didn't care about polished paint or shiny chrome, a machine that could end this fight before it even began. But was I really ready to go that far, to cross that line, to crush the Queen's crown right in front of the whole neighborhood? And now I'll ask you, if your HOA president blocked your life with a car just to prove they had power, would you stay silent? Or would you fight back with everything you had? The night passed heavy on my chest. Sleep never came easy when the Bentley sat there like a shadow outside my barn. I kept hearing the creak of my tractor inside, like it was restless too, like it wanted out. When the morning came, the silence was broken not by birds, but by the sound of her voice. Karen, she was already outside, walking her little dog along the street, heels clicking against the pavement, her hair perfect, her smile sharper than any blade. Neighbors waved at her, but I noticed something in their eyes. Fear. The kind of fear that makes people smile so they don't become the next target. I had seen it before. Old Mr. Johnson across the street. He planted roses that didn't match the approved list. Fines piled up until he had to rip them out. The Smith family. Their kids left bikes on the driveway. The board threatened legal action if they didn't pay penalties. Everyone had been touched by her rules. Everyone had been cut by her scissors. But no one dared to fight back. That was the world we lived in, a world where grass height mattered more than kindness, where mailbox paint was more important than neighborly respect, where a barn door, my barn door, was considered a crime against harmony, and all of it and controlled by her. The HOA wasn't a board anymore. It wasn't a group of neighbors looking out for each other. It was a crown, and Karen wore it proudly. Every rule was a weapon. Every fine was a bullet. Every letter slipped under your door was a threat. I kept thinking back to the first time she ever spoke to me. Years ago, she walked up to me while I was fixing the fence, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on. Her first words weren't hello. They weren't welcome. They were, "That wood isn't on the approved list." That was how it began, and it had only grown worse. Now here she was, sipping her coffee, her Bentley parked across my barn, her eyes daring me to do something about it. But the thing is, the more she pushed, the more something grew inside me. Not just anger, but defiance. Like a fire that had been waiting all this time to burn. I stepped out onto my porch, and I looked at her straight in the eye. I didn't wave, I didn't smile, and for the first time, I saw it. A flicker, just a flicker, of something in her face. Uncertainty, because maybe she realized I wasn't like the others. I wasn't going to fold my roses, hide my bikes, repaint my mailbox. I wasn't going to bow. The neighbors watched, pretending to water their lawns, pretending to check their mail. But I knew they were waiting too, waiting to see if I would break, or if I would fight. Karen finished her walk and went back inside. But the Bentley stayed. It was her soldier, her guard, her weapon planted in front of my barn. And every second it stayed there. It chipped away at me. I tried to distract myself, fixing tools in the shed, mowing the grass. But my eyes always returned to it. The reflection of my barn doors in its polished paint, the shadow it cast across the gravel, the insult it screamed without a word. I remember gripping the rake so hard the wood almost cracked in my hand because I realized something. This wasn't about the barn anymore. It was about control, and she wasn't going to stop unless I made her stop. But how do you fight someone like Karen, someone with money, with power, with the HOA wrapped around her finger, someone who could crush you with a single letter, a single fine, a single vote? I thought of the stories neighbors had told me in whispers, of the ones who tried to fight back and ended up selling their homes in shame, of the ones who lost court battles, who lost sleep, who lost everything. She had destroyed them, one by one, like a queen picking off pawns. And yet, as the sun dipped lower and the shadows grew long across my yard, I found myself staring at the barn doors, and behind them, the tractor, the old machine that had carried me through storms, that had dug through mud, that had lifted weight no man could lift. It was simple, heavy, powerful. It didn't need permission. It didn't need approval. It only needed me. The thought scared me, because once you cross a line like that, you can't go back. You can't uncrush a Bentley. You can't unmake war. But then I remembered the way she laughed, the way she turned her back on me, the way she treated me like nothing, and the fire inside me grew. That night, I barely touched my dinner. I sat on the porch, the moonlight silvering the hood of her car. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet, but inside me there was noise, the roar of an engine waiting to start, the creak of barn doors waiting to swing open, the promise of a moment that would change everything. I leaned back, staring at the stars, asking myself the same question over and over. What's stronger? Money and power, or grit and iron? And maybe the better question is this: if you were me, standing there with your freedom trapped behind a barn door and a Bentley laughing in your face, would you wait for mercy? Or would you let the tractor speak? The morning sun hit the Bentley like a spotlight. Every line of chrome glared back at me as if it were taunting me. I stood at the edge of my porch, fists tight, breath heavy. Today I couldn't ignore it. Today I had to say something. I walked across the gravel, boots crunching loud enough for neighbors to peek through blinds. The closer I got, the stronger the scent of her expensive perfume filled the air. Because of course she was already outside, standing there with her coffee, her sunglasses, her smug smile. "You're blocking my barn again," I said, my voice calm but sharp. She tilted her head, took a long sip, and let the silence hang heavy before answering. "Oh, is that a problem?" Her words were soft, but they carried the weight of a slap. A problem, like my work didn't matter, like my land, my time, my life, were nothing but toys for her amusement. "Yes, it is a problem," I told her. "Move the car." For a second, I thought maybe she would, but then she smirked, lowered her sunglasses just enough for me to see her eyes, cold, empty, filled with the thrill of control. "I don't think I will," she said, turning to walk away. And just like that, she dismissed me, like I was a child asking for candy before dinner. The neighbors were watching now. I saw curtains twitch, doors crack open, silent faces waiting. Not one of them spoke. Not one of them stepped in. Because they were scared. Because they had all been in my place before. But that silence, it didn't crush me. It fueled me. Because if no one else would stand up to her, then I would. I shouted after her. "You can't do this forever." She stopped, slowly turned her head, and smiled without warmth. "Forever is exactly what I do," she said. Before walking into her house, that was it. That was the moment the line was drawn. The rest of the day felt like a storm trapped inside my chest. I tried fixing tools, sharpening blades, cleaning the shed, but all I saw was that Bentley blocking my barn. The way the morning light bounced off its hood, the way its shadow fell over the gravel where I used to work, the way it stood there like a monument to her power. By evening, my patience was gone. I grabbed a notepad and wrote a letter. Short and simple. "Remove your car from my barn door immediately." I folded it. "Walk," and across the lawn, and slipped it under her door. An hour later, there was a knock on mine. When I opened it, there wasn't Karen. There was an envelope inside, an official-looking HOA letter, printed, stamped, signed by the board she controlled. It read, "Barn doors are not in compliance with community design rules. Your request to access the barn is denied. Any attempt to modify or use said structure without board approval will result in fines and legal action." Legal action. She had turned her blockade into a rule, her spite into law. She had made her Bentley an extension of the HOA. I laughed when I read it, not because it was funny, but because of the sheer madness of it. A barn door was a violation, a tractor was a crime, and Karen was the sheriff, judge, and executioner all in one. The neighbors whispered louder now. Some of them pitied me, some of them looked away, but a few, just a few, smiled at me with quiet hope, because maybe, just maybe, someone was finally willing to push back. That night I sat in the barn, doors half open, moonlight slipping through the crack. My tractor sat in the dark, silent but waiting. Its metal frame carried years of work, its engine carried years of strength. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was a promise. I ran my hand along the cold steel, and in that moment I knew this wasn't just about me. This was about every neighbor who had been fined, threatened, humiliated. This was about everyone who had bowed their head while she ruled from her Bentley throne. It was about ending the silence. I closed the barn doors slowly, like sealing a pact. Tomorrow, I decided, would not be the same. The air outside was still, the neighborhood asleep, but inside me, a storm was awake, and I asked myself the question that burned through my mind. When someone uses power to crush you, to trap you, and to control your every move, do you bow your head and accept it, or do you rise up and risk everything to break free? The morning came heavy, the kind of morning where the sky feels lower, pressing down on you. I opened the barn doors slowly, hoping for a miracle. But no miracle came. The Bentley was there again, its black hood shining like polished armor, its tires planted like roots in the gravel. This time, I didn't just see a car. I saw a wall, a prison, a throne, and behind it all, I saw her, Karen. She stood at the edge of the driveway, her little dog tugging at the leash, her sunglasses reflecting my own face back at me. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her smile said everything. She had won, at least in her mind. I stepped forward, the gravel shifting under my boots, my heart loud in my chest. Neighbors peeked through curtains again. Silent judges in a court with no mercy. I raised my voice, sharp, steady. "Move your car." She tilted her head, smirked, and shook her head slowly. No. That single word hit me harder than any fine, any threat, any letter. It wasn't just defiance, it was her telling me she owned me, My blood boiled, but before I could speak, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "You raise your voice again," she said, her tone like ice, "and I'll call the police." The neighbors stiffened behind their curtains. I could almost hear their hearts drop. Police. Over a barn door. Over a tractor. That was her weapon now. Fear wrapped in authority. But I didn't flinch. I just stared at her, letting the silence stretch. Until finally she laughed. The sound was sharp, cruel, echoing across the cul-de-sac. And then she walked away, leaving the Bentley like a monument to her victory. The rest of the day burned like fire in my chest. I paced the yard, worked the soil with shaking hands, my eyes way snapping back to the car. The tractor was trapped inside, like a caged beast waiting for release, and I felt trapped too, like she had locked me inside my own life. That night, another letter arrived, slipped under my door again, but this one was different. It wasn't just a fine, it was a warning. It read, "Any further attempts to access or operate unapproved equipment on HOA property will result in legal escalation." HOA property, that's what they called my barn now. That's what they called my land. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh even to my own ears. They wanted to take everything, not just control me, but erase me. And that was when the fire inside me became something more. Not just anger, resolve. The next day, I didn't hide in my house. I stood tall on the porch, arms crossed, waiting. And when Karen came outside, I didn't look away. Our eyes locked across the street, like two gunslingers in an old western. Her smirk faltered, just for a second, but enough for me to see it, a crack in her armor. The neighbors felt it too. They came out slowly, watering lawns that didn't need water, checking mail that hadn't arrived. They were watching us, not out of curiosity, but out of hope. They wanted to see if someone, anyone, would finally fight back. Karen strutted toward me, heels clicking, her phone ready in her hand. "You think you scare me?" she said, her voice sharp. "No," I replied calmly, "but maybe I scare you." Her jaw tightened. Her fingers gripped the phone harder. She turned to the Bentley, ran her hand along the hood like it was her weapon, her shield. "You touch this car," she whispered, "and I'll destroy you." Her words hung in the air, heavy, poisonous. But instead of fear, I felt a strange calm, because I realized something. She had already destroyed everyone else, but me, she hadn't destroyed. "See me yet that night? I didn't sit on the porch. I sat in the barn." The tractor loomed in the shadows, its frame strong, its tires thick, its engine waiting. I ran my hand along the wheel, whispering like it could hear me. "They think you're unapproved. They think you're a crime, but they don't know you." I could almost hear it breathe back, like it was alive, like it was ready. The neighborhood was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the silence before a storm. And for the first time, I didn't just feel trapped. I felt dangerous, because when someone pushes you long enough, hard enough, when they strip away your pride and laugh in your face, you stop caring about rules. You stop caring about fear. You stop caring about consequences. You start caring only about one thing, justice. And that night, I made my choice. The tractor would roll, the Bentley would fall, and the HOA would finally see. What happens when you push a man too far? But I have to ask you, if someone stood in front of your life with a smile, blocking everything you worked for, laughing as they crushed your freedom, would you wait for mercy? Or would you take the wheel and end it yourself? The next morning felt different. The air was heavy, the sky thick with clouds that hadn't yet broken. I stepped outside and didn't even need to look. I already knew what I'd see. The Bentley, still there, still blocking my barn door, still shining like a trophy in the early light. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was calm, too calm, because I knew the storm was coming. And I wasn't afraid of it anymore. Karen was already outside, walking her little dog, pretending like the entire neighborhood belonged to her. Her sunglasses caught the light, reflecting my house, my barn. Even me standing there like a prisoner on my own land. She smirked when she saw me. She loved this game. I didn't speak to her that morning. I didn't yell. I didn't demand she move. I just stared. And for the first time, I saw her smirk falter. Just a flicker. But it was there because silence can be louder than rage. And my silence told her. I wasn't broken. I was planning. The neighbors felt it too. They lingered longer at their mailboxes. Their hoses watered patches of grass that didn't need water. They could sense something was building, and maybe they were waiting for it. I spent the rest of the day in the barn. The doors cracked open just enough for me to slip inside. The tractor sat there in the dim light, silent, but alive. I touched the key in the ignition, not turning it yet, just feeling its weight in my hand. It was more than a key now. It was a decision. Once I turned it, there would be no going back. I leaned against the seat, staring through the gap in the barn doors at the silhouette of her Bentley. Perfect, polished, untouchable. But even kings fall. Even queens lose their crowns, and one heavy push was all it would take. But still, I hesitated, because deep down, I knew once I crossed that line, everything would change. The board would come after me. The police might come after me. The whole neighborhood would be dragged into it. And maybe that was exactly what needed to happen. That night, I couldn't eat. I sat on the porch, staring at the car as the moonlight slid across its hood. Karen came out late, standing by her mailbox, pretending to check letters that weren't there. But I knew why she was out there. She wanted me to see her. She wanted to remind me she wasn't going anywhere. We locked eyes across the street. No words spoken, but in that silence, there was war. The next day, it got worse. Not only was the Bentley parked across my barn, but now a fresh notice was taped to my front door. Another fine, another rule broken. This time, they claimed my porch light was too bright at night. Too bright, as if the glow of a single bulb was destroying the entire neighborhood. I tore the letter in half, the paper ripping like thunder in my hands, because I finally understood this wasn't about barn doors or porch lights. This was about breaking me, about pushing me until I folded. But I wasn't going to fold. That afternoon, I oiled the tractor, checked the tires, tested the gears. Each click and turn felt like preparing a soldier for battle. My hands were steady, my heart sharp. The neighbors watched from a distance, some with worry, some with quiet smiles. They knew something was coming, and maybe they wanted it by evening. Karen strutted down the street again, her heels clicking like hammers, her dog tugging at the leash. She stopped in front of the Bentley, brushing dust from the hood that wasn't even there. Her smile aimed at me, and I smiled back, but my smile wasn't sweet. It was a promise. That night, the storm clouds finally opened. Rain fell heavy on the roofs, water streaming down the street. The Bentley sat there, its perfect paint wet and shining. I sat in the barn, hands on the tractor's wheel, listening to the thunder. The storm outside matched the storm inside me. Loud, angry, unstoppable. The engine wanted to roar, the doors wanted to swing open, but I held it back. Not yet, not tonight, because the right moment hadn't come. But when it did, nothing would stop me. I leaned forward, whispering into the dark, "Not much longer." And in that whisper, I wasn't talking to the tractor anymore. I was talking to her, because she had made her move. Now it was my turn. But let me ask you this. If you had the power to crush the thing your enemy loved most, the thing they used to control you, would you wait for the perfect moment? Or would you strike now and watch it fall under your wheels? The storm had passed in the night, but the air was still heavy, thick with the smell of wet earth and gasoline. I woke early, earlier than usual, because I already knew today would be different. When I stepped outside, the ground was damp, the clouds low. And there it was again, the Bentley, still blocking my barn door, still shining as if rain couldn't touch it, still mocking me with every drop of water rolling down its perfect hood. I stood there for a long moment, letting the silence settle. Then I smiled, because today, the waiting was over. Karen came out just as the sun broke the clouds, her hair perfect, her heels sharp against the wet pavement, her sunglasses hiding the satisfaction in her eyes. But she didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her car was already speaking for her. I walked past her without a word, straight to the barn doors. I could feel her gaze on me. Confused, curious, because I wasn't shouting anymore. I wasn't pleading. I wasn't even angry. I was calm. I pulled the doors open slowly, the creak echoing like thunder across the street. And there it was, my tractor, its metal frame damp from the storm, its tires thick with mud from work long past, its presence filling the barn like a sleeping giant. I climbed onto the seat, my hands wrapping around the cold steel of the wheel. I slid the key into the ignition, and for a second, the world held its breath. Then I turned it. The engine roared to life. A deep, heavy sound that shook the barn walls. Birds scattered from the trees. Dogs barked down the street. And neighbors rushed to their windows. The storm had come back. But this time it was mine. I pushed the gears into motion, the tractor rolling forward with a slow, unstoppable crawl. The barn doors opened wide, the sunlight spilling over me, over the machine, over the path ahead. And there it was, waiting like prey, the Bentley. Karen gasped, finally breaking her silence. "What are you doing?" she shouted, her voice cracking with panic. But I didn't answer. The tractor answered for me. The heavy tires rolled closer, gravel crunching under the weight, the engine growling like a beast set free. The Bentley's polished hood reflected the tractor's shadow, the two worlds colliding, shiny metal and leather seats. Against iron and earth and sweat, Karen ran forward, waving her arms, her dog barking wildly. "Stop! Stop! You'll regret this!" she screamed. But she was too late. The front of the tractor kissed the Bentley's bumper, soft at first, almost gentle, and then I pressed harder. The sound was deafening, metal groaning, glass cracking, the scream of money meeting reality. The Bentley's perfect hood folded like paper, its lights shattered, its beauty gone in seconds, and still the tractor pushed forward, slow, steady, unstoppable. Karen's scream echoed through the street. Neighbors poured out now, phones raised, gasps filling the air. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop, because this wasn't just about a car. This was about every fine, every letter, every laugh she threw in my face. This was about power. And how easily it crumbles when met with real force. The Bentley crunched under the tractor's weight, its polished body collapsing, its throne destroyed. And when the machine finally rolled over the hood, there was nothing left but ruin. Shiny metal turned to broken scraps, luxury turned to rubble. I stopped the tractor and let the engine idle, the growl filling the stunned silence. Karen stood frozen, her face pale, her sunglasses hanging crooked on her nose. For the first time, she wasn't smiling. I climbed down slowly, my boots hitting the gravel hard. Steady. I walked past the wreckage, past the shattered crown of the queen who thought she was untouchable, and I looked her straight in the eye. "You wanted my barn closed," I said softly. "Now it's open." The neighbors erupted in whispers, some gasping, some laughing quietly, some cheering under their breath, because they knew the spell had been broken. Karen staggered back, clutching her phone, her voice shaking. "You're finished. I'll destroy you for this. I'll call the police." But even her threats sounded weak now, because her power didn't sit in her words. It sat in that car, and that car was gone. I looked around at the neighbors, their phones still raised, recording every second, and I realized something. I wasn't the one on trial anymore. She was. The board couldn't hide this. The police couldn't spin this, because the truth was right there in the gravel, her arrogance. Crushed under wheels of iron, I stepped back into the tractor. The engine still rumbling like a storm that hadn't finished. Karen screamed something at me, her words lost in the roar. But I didn't listen, because I had already made my point. The tractor rolled back into the barn, the doors closing behind me, the wreckage of her Bentley still smoking in the driveway. And in that silence, I finally breathed. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end, because people like Karen don't go quietly. And the board wouldn't let this go unanswered. The war had only just begun, and now I'll ask you, if you had the chance to crush the very symbol of your enemy's power, knowing it would change everything forever, would you take it without regret? Or would you hold back and let them keep their crown? The silence after the engine stopped was deafening. Only the soft crackle of broken glass filled the air. The Bentley sat in ruins, twisted metal and shattered pride, and Karen stood frozen in the street, her mouth open, but no words coming out. The neighbors didn't move at first. Then slowly, like a wave, whispers spread. Some covered their mouths in shock, some laughed under their breath, some even clapped quietly, careful not to be seen. For the first time in years, the queen had lost her crown. Karen's face burned red, her sunglasses gone, her eyes wild. She pointed at me with shaking hands. "You're finished. Do you hear me? Finished." Her voice cracked, sharp, but empty, because everyone could see the truth. The power wasn't hers anymore. Phones had captured it all, the tractor rolling, the Bentley folding, her screams, my silence. There was no spin, no letter, no fine that could erase it, but still. She tried. By that evening, an emergency HOA meeting was called. Of course she sat at the head of the table. Even though her throne was dented now, the board members whispered nervously, some siding with her, some not so sure anymore. I sat in the back, calm, steady, because I knew the truth was already out there. She slammed her gavel, her voice sharp. "This man is in violation of multiple community rules. He is violent, reckless, dangerous. He destroyed private property." The room shifted uneasily, because everyone knew whose property it was, and everyone knew who had trespassed first. I stood slowly, my voice even. "She blocked my barn door with her car. She broke the rules. She trespassed. I did what I had to do." Karen laughed bitterly, her eyes darting to the board. "Don't listen to him. He's twisting the story. The videos are fake." But even as she spoke, phones buzzed. Clips were already online, shared through group chats, posted on neighborhood pages. The truth was spreading faster than her lies. One board member cleared his throat, his voice soft but firm. "Karen, we've reviewed the footage. He's right. You trespassed. You abused your position. This isn't about community rule anymore. It's about you." Her face drained of color. Her jaw tight, she slammed the gavel again. I am the president of this HOA. I make the rules. But this time, no one listened. Because power only works when people believe in it, and the people didn't believe anymore. The meeting ended in chaos, neighbors whispering, board members avoiding her eyes. Karen stormed out, her heels loud against the floor. But those heels didn't sound like power anymore. They sounded like desperation. Days passed. The Bentley was towed away in silence, a broken husk taken from the driveway. The space in front of my barn was finally empty, open, free. I swung the doors wide, rolled the tractor out, and for the first time in weeks, the air felt light. The neighbors watched quietly, some nodding to me, some smiling openly now. The fear had cracked. The spell was broken. But Karen didn't disappear. She tried letters, threats, even called the police. They came once, looked at the wreckage, looked at the videos, and left shaking their heads, because there are some battles even law won't fight when the truth is too clear. One morning, a new notice was posted on the community board, not a fine, not a threat, but an announcement. Effective immediately, Karen has been removed as HOA president. A new election will be held next month. I stood there reading it. The neighbors gathered around, the whispers louder than ever. Some laughed, some cheered, some sighed with relief, but all of them looked at me differently now, not with fear, not with pity, but with respect, because someone had finally stood up, and that someone was me. Karen never looked at me the same again. Her eyes were filled not with power, but with hate. She avoided me now, walked her dog down different streets, parked her replacement car far from my barn. Her kingdom was gone, her throne crushed under my wheels. And as for me, I didn't celebrate with loud words or victory speeches. I just opened my barn, rolled out my tractor, and went back to work, because that's all I ever wanted, to live my life in peace, without a queen controlling every breath I took. But the story spread. Neighbors told it at barbecues. Kids whispered it on bikes. Even nearby communities heard about it. The tale of the man who crushed the Bentley, the man who broke the queen, the man who showed that sometimes iron beats money. I never asked to be a hero. I never wanted to be a legend. But in that quiet neighborhood, I became both, and sometimes, late at night, when the street is quiet, I look out at the space where her Bentley once stood, and I smile, because justice doesn't always come from rules or courts. Sometimes, justice comes on 4 heavy tires, with an engine that refuses to be silenced. And now I'll leave you with this. If you lived in a neighborhood ruled by someone who thought they were untouchable, someone who used power to crush everyone around them, would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you risk everything to show the world that no crown, no car, no queen lasts forever?